People post, I need to know how to make an impact. And then kind of, how is it? I've tried it. No institution use this. That's what I was.
But it's mostly UK people, right?
Yeah,
Or
there's Australians now.
oh, is there?
Lots of Australians. And this year, well, last year, September, lots of Canadians. So I thought it was quite interesting. We'll just go to the comments.
You got it done? Maybe can I save it now?
Sure.
Okay. Changing anything, or are you ready? Can I save it as a new name?
Yeah.
At least it's not in Finnish anymore. I was trying to read Finnish. Okay, I'm going to call this June updated. That's going to be the file then. And I'll save it on my flash memory stick and send it to you so you have a copy of the final version. How's that sound?
Sure. You are really expert at all this. This is like all the presentation.
I do it a lot. I do it a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, there's been outside the door actually. I did say there was no, but there is. It's not where we are.
Okay. The final version just says updated. The one you want to post here, it'll just say Bonk updated.
Do you want to get it up? Oh, hang on.
It's on. We have it up. I mean, oh, do you want to put it up on the web, you're saying? Can you put that up there?
No, I was going to suggest, let's power up this. Please touch the screen.
Oh, we have to,
yes. And it's the PC.
Yes, you're right.
And it's going to power up, and then you can just open it up and go in the usual way.
Yeah, it's up. We have it at the top. It's ready. Yeah.
So
we just have to hit the machine up.
Yeah.
Okay.
While that's doing that, I'm going to begin to gather people up.
Yeah. As you know, the best times are after lunch, but sometimes not. I'll wake them up. I'll give you the clicker whilst you're standing right there. I'm going to stand up. Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You should be able to walk in the audience and go in. Let's try it.
While you're presenting, am I sitting this one?
Yes.
Yeah, you're up.
Should be overrunning.
And there you
Yes, 5 minutes.
Yeah. And
You want to practice? You want to try this? You want to try it?
yeah, okay.
You want to try it? Just hit forward and backwards.
Now I don't know whether you like to see the people.
And this is a laser pointer here.
Okay.
Okay. And this turns it all off.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. You want to see what?
Would you prefer full light on everyone, or this is medium at the moment?
Medium's fine.
Yeah.
I like medium.
And then when it comes to questions, one of us can try and remember to.
Do we need a microphone in this room?
Here is an amplifier, but if you're going to be recorded, let me turn this on. And if you're swapping between each other,
Yeah, I'll hand it to her.
Yeah, I don't know how much you move around, but you could either keep it on here or go for it. Yeah. So now you're being recorded.
Is this live? On?
It is on. It's not
All right.
being broadcast, it's just being recorded.
Okay. We're at 10 to.
we do time for questions?
So we've got our timer set for 20,
Okay, brilliant.
right, like that. So if we get started, we're all set. Okay. Remember, after we're done, the other rooms, and we'll come back here for the final one. The other room has the 3 breakouts. This room has a workshop, which, you know.
We have about 2 pairs of spectacles. So they're just on the front here. And we'll, if no one claims them, we'll put them in your pocket.
I think it would be best to have you. Well, you'll be able to see better from over there, actually.
I don't want to, I don't know.
Or you could sit in the front row, too.
There's a few people mingling as they...
Is there anyone sitting there?
Yeah, I'm going to sit there.
Okay. So why don't you just take that one, I think, that's probably best.
And then I'll come up at the end and just do the question thing.
And I'll hand you the microphone. I have the microphone. I'll hand you the microphone.
Okay. Oh, I don't need a microphone.
They're recording it.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes.
All right.
You're right, no, you don't.
Yeah.
They can hear you. Yes.
I think I'm better, it's better for me to sit sitting there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And that way you can cue me better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you everyone for that on time. We're very pleased to be able to introduce you to Curtis Bonk and Mimi Lee, who are going to be doing their talk. They're talking about stepping into life change, a new measure of the impact of MOOCs and open education.
You got your water there. You want a cup? Good afternoon. Wow, I didn't even say it twice. Usually I have to say it twice. As you notice, my voice is going on me a little bit here. I flew in from Finland this morning. I was presenting there at this time yesterday in Tampere, and woke up at 3 a.m. to take a bus to come join you. So actually I didn't wake up, I didn't go to bed. So my colleague Mimi Lee and I are going to talk about MOOCs and open education and some of the research we've been doing. I've got my timer set at 20 minutes, so at the end of 20 minutes we're going to give away seven books of my new book called Adding Some Tech Variety, which all of you can get for free. If you go to techvariety.com, you can download the new book for free. There's no H in tech. I've made it a free book and so forth. Mimi and I are working on a book on MOOCs and open education, and Amy is in the audience somewhere here. She's writing a chapter for us with Rutledge. So we don't have the chapters in yet, or we talk about that. We're going to talk about life change here in this particular talk. And hopefully we'll have some inspiring questions from all of you, and you'll get a free book if you one of these paper ones. And so we should probably get started since it's on the 19 minutes here. So stepping into life change. Not stepping into quicksand or doggy-doo, or stepping into life change, a new measure of the impact of MOOCs in open education. And you see some of the people here from India, Netherlands, and Spain taking a MOOC from UPenn, and Professor Peter Struck teaching 50,000 students around the world in mythology. And, you know, that's actually where your son, I think, goes to school at UPenn. It's one of the leaders in the field, in the U.S. anyhow. Audience poll. How many of you remember what you were doing when 9/11 happened? How many remember 4/11? One of you. Fred does. What's happening in 4/11?
2 days before my grandmother.
Oh, well, okay. On April 4th, 2001, Charles Vest announced that education should be free. I sent him my resume that night. I spoofed it up, sent it off to him, spiced it up, I should say. He never returned my call, never returned the email. I don't know why. But I was interested in this phenomenon back in 2001. We were lucky, and Mimi and I, in collecting data from MIT. So we're going to give you some data and show what people are doing with MIT OpenCourseware since that time, as well as taking a MOOC. I did the first MOOC with Blackboard on teaching online, and we analyzed some of that data as well. But Charles Vest said, hey, this is bigger than MIT. You all should be jumping in on this. This is a unique phenomenon, and these are unique times. And so he's trying to look at how can we raise the quality of learning and education. My second question here, it said polling question 1 earlier. This is another polling question 1, should say 2. Has learning technology ever transformed your life? Raise your hand. How about in the past year? Okay. Changed my life. I was a board CPA and corporate controller, but I escaped the cube farms. This was my first computer, by the way. That was a laptop computer, mobile, weighed 40 pounds, US pounds. Flash zip, the floppy disk held 48K of memory, that's it. $2,500. My boss said, what would someone need a personal computer for? But that's another story. We were True Blue IBM mainframe all the way. And we went under after I went off to grad school. But I escaped the cube farms through TV and correspondence. I know TV and correspondence wasn't as good as face-to-face for me, but it changed my life. And I think some of us are looking at, is MOOCs better than face-to-face or not, or people are dropping out, but lives are changing despite whatever we're calling dropouts within all that. So let's fast forward 25 years, and today, as Fred, someone said, hey, a copy of my World is Open book. In that book, I point out anyone can learn anything from anyone else at any time. And the kids today have technology wrapped all around them, as you can see there. Different technologies. We do, too. Everybody on the plane with me today was checking things immediately as we got off. The old technology, prehistoric Googling. Some of you remember that, right? Raise your hands. You're certifiably old. Okay. New technologies that enable us to access, filter, share information. The world's become more visual, more collaborative, more open, more online, more blended, more ubiquitous, more comfortable. Learning is changing in many ways. And we're going to talk about open, whether we're talking about 80-year-old gentlemen getting their degree finally, or women in the rainforest in wheelchairs learning online from the University of the People. This guy's learning from Western Governors University. This yak herder from Tibet learning from Open Yale. Life's changing for many people out there. The press tends to ignore that. The press doesn't talk about life change at all. They're only looking at one simple number that doesn't really mean a whole lot. Now, what's happening? I'm going to give you some current news. My friend Chuck Severance is doing a MOOC right now on programming for everyone, trying to get high school teachers to learn how to program. This guy's the guy with the open source tattoo who built Sakai, if you've heard of Sakai Foundation. He traveled to Barcelona, met his students, traveled to Seoul, Korea, met his students, traveled to Manila, Melbourne. He travels the world meeting his students. University of London has a course on research methods right now. June 18th, announcement from Oregon State. We're going to offer a PD MOOC for teachers. I think MOOCs, particular professional development MOOCs, theory-driven MOOCs, remedial MOOCs, make a lot of sense. Teachers don't have to come on campus then for this, or dentists, or doctors, or whatever. In fact, June 17th, there was an announcement that I got an email anyhow announcing a website called oedb.org. It's an open education database. And they were trying to index MOOCs, and I wrote to them, it's a voluntary base. This is not a corporate or a company doing this. They've been working on this for a number of years, creating exploring open courses, free, whether it's free art classes, humanities classes, biology classes, or whatever. Of course, the Saylor Foundation's doing this too out of DC. This woman here is taking a short MOOC. There's a couple of Russian entrepreneurs creating a new company that's trying to challenge traditional instruction by creating short, pithy kinds of MOOCs, whether that's going to take off or not, I'm not quite sure. That was May 5th, 2014, and I'm missing the name of the company, unfortunately, and maybe somebody can help me out and look that up. October 31st, 2013, Sir John Daniels says, let's make an open education resource university where you can sign up for any class you want, but if you want course credit, if you want certificates, then you pay. So it's a pay for the, there's a lot of business models here. As a former accountant, I've come up with 15 business models for MOOCs. I'm not going to go through all 15, but one of them is to pay for certificates, pay for the assessments. And I'm at about 2 minutes left before I switch over to Mimi here. In Rwanda, they have a set of MOOCs up online, or they're repurposing MOOCs they're repurposing MOOCs to get kids hybrid programs. So in Rwanda, they're taking open education courses, contents, and creating courses out of them. But there are problems, many problems, despite all the hype, despite all the positive successes, despite all the life change. We hear about the University of Edinburgh, we hear about Duke University, we hear about MIT and Harvard and the dropout rates, but not everyone's there to finish the course. They're there to learn a little bit, to learn to find out what online learning's like. We hear about lack of engagement. Well, not everybody's there actually to take that course. They just thought they might browse it like being in a library. I think MOOCs are more like being exposed to a library than being in a course. If we never look at how many people finish reading the book or that they opened up. And we don't give that, the media never reports that kind of thing. But we do open up minds when they open up books. We open up minds, we open up doors. We give people possibilities for life change. There's some data showing that, yes, a majority of men, young people with a bachelor's degree are the majority taking MOOCs. People already coming in with degrees. This little infographic statistic came out about a month and a half ago. So that's a problem. Another problem is the issue of impact. Where are we impacting? Are we impacting just people in North America and the UK? Are we offering, are we impacting people, in particular, if you look at this slide, the percent of people having degrees already taking courses in North Africa is pretty large. We're not getting, people in parts of the world that we would like to get exposure to taking these MOOCs. So the impact issues. We're not impacting the underprivileged. 2/3 of people taking Coursera courses are coming from the developed world, not the undeveloped world or underdeveloped world. Number 5, assessment and credentialing issues regarding MOOCs. Are we actually going to have some kind of certificate or course credit or a program degree or something else, or badges or something like that? So issues of assessment and credentialing are also pervasive. Lack of feedback. Now Coursera is forming learning hubs to meet with other people, chat with other people, whether you're living in Kenya or Argentina or Venezuela or other parts of the world. You have a learning hub to come meet other folks in New York City or in London here. And localization of content. Coursera just announced that they're going to have a set of people localize contents. Now, we studied, Mimi and I a long time ago, studied the OOPS project out of Taiwan, where they were translating MIT contents free to the world in Chinese. Coursera just picked up on this notion. They're a for-profit taking advantage of people volunteering their time to make Coursera a more profitable company. Think about that. So that's a big issue. This guy from Korea says we need more OC MOOCs, one culture MOOCs. So we have all Koreans around the world, all expats around the world taking content that's not in English or dominated in English, but in Korean. He also said we need human MOOCs, HMOOCs, but I'm not sure what he means by that. And we need to stop having the government shut down the MOOCs for people in Syria. One day you talk about a guy in Syria whose life changed through MOOCs, and the next day the U.S. government shuts down the spigot and doesn't allow courses going to Cuba, Iran, Syria, and so forth. So there's some serious issues around all these MOOCs. This guy did get access to it eventually. There was a lot of hoopla about that. But on the other hand, there's life change. There's people at Wellesley College, this guy in particular, who has a MOOC. He says, in my MOOC on Alexander the Great, students are inspired. Their lives are being changed. There's inspiration, passion, love of learning. We hear about Starbucks offering online courses. There's a lot of people serving you coffee at Starbucks whose lives are going to be changed, as the announcement last week, for free online education. And finally, this woman here in Afghanistan was announced last week that she's going to fly to the U.S. to headline a conference for corporate trainers, and she's been learning online through digital education. And Elliot Mazie and the Mazie Institute decided to have her be the keynote of the conference, talking about how her life was changed and inspired. The Gates Foundation is doing research around MOOCs, having the researchers do short little videos of what their research says. I think we need student, learner, participant videos about how their lives are changing. Anyways, we studied MIT OpenCourseWare, as I mentioned earlier. MIT OpenCourseWare is used around the world. We had mostly males, over age 40, 50%. We had 1,400 completed surveys, and they came from India, China, Brazil, Nigeria, Pakistan. They were mostly curious about the topic, interested in the topic, self-improvement, wanting to learn something, and so forth. More personal control. They're not looking to get a certificate, not looking to get a badge. They were learning science and math and foreign language and culture. They were looking for new skills, bettering their lives, helping society out. Credit bearing was way down the list. So again, the media is hyping this side, but people are looking to change society. They want to learn something new, want freedom, and so forth. Personal freedom. Carl Rogers, freedom to learn in psychology. Fun, fantasy, choice, adventure. This is all in the new book. This is a book on motivation and retention online with 10 principles of motivation. This comes out in OpenCourseWare. This comes out in MOOCs, why people are involved in them. So Mimi's going to talk a bit about the qualitative side of things here and then switch it back to me at the very end. Mm-hmm. Oh, I need to give you the microphone.
Okay, so I was invited to conduct an analysis on the qualitative data of the MIT OpenCourseWare study that Curt just has mentioned. Out of 43 item survey, there were 25 open-ended items, and we received 613 completed responses. So my task was to analyze those 613 responses and see what they are actually saying. So kind of a different focus than what Curt has just mentioned. I'm more interested in how do we interpret the life change, or how do we make sense of what's happening with MOOCs learners. And stepping back a little bit, by training, I'm a qualitative researcher and more of a critical ethnographer. So I'm very interested in more micro level issues. So you can imagine the challenge that I face looking at this survey items, which I don't usually do. I'm doing more, I'm more of an interview and observation person. But the whole idea of MOOCs and finding a way to understand the MOOCs learners in a way that is meaningful for me as a qualitative researcher was interesting enough, so I just took on the challenge. I'm looking at culture and the identity of MOOC learners, and we are using mixed methods with a group of researchers. I'm using the word mixed methods in a loose term. In a way, it's not quantitative and qualitative mix, but more of qualitative research methods and two methods combined in the analysis. And there are 4 of us who are working. And so what we found out through this overall qualitative analysis about MOOCs learners is that they have strong intrinsic motivation. A lot of people said, this is for my own pleasure. That was focused and mentioned repeatedly. And emphasis on autonomy. Nobody helped me. They said it very proudly. Nobody helped me. I did it on my own. The fact that I didn't have anybody to help me seemed to be a source of pride for these learners. Love for creation and sharing, membership of community and in the community with people of similar interests. So this is kind of a general idea of MOOC learners that we've noticed. The challenge with this big data set was that, especially in this term, 43 items and 25 open-ended question items, there were possible overlaps between the open-ended questions, and I was not involved in making those questions. So when I was given the set of data, there were a lot of overlaps. And so there were connected responses across the questions. So out of 25 questions, what we realize is some people don't answer when they say something about, okay, what was the challenge? What did you not like about your experience MOOCs? And they say something like, oh, everything was okay. And so if I look at that, the person didn't have any problem with, the MOOCs that they took. But along the line, by say out of 25 questions, by question 23 or 24, when the question asked, okay, do you have any advice or suggestions for future learners in MOOCs? They would have suggestions and advices that are very critical. And so there was a discrepancy between their answer in number 1 when they were asked, do you have any things that you didn't like, which was no. And by item 24, they had all these ideas and advices for people who are planning to take MOOCs. So we've noticed, and I've noticed that looking at these questions by item wouldn't give me a good or meaningful answer. So I've decided to analyze 25 items by participants. So instead of going, vertical, we decided to go across and treat each participant and 25 answers by each participant as a short interview. So treating as 76 for short interviews. Actually, there are 605 MIT course answers, and there were Blackboard questions, Blackboard data sets. So out of 764, there are only 605 MIT OpenCourseWare interviews. So the challenge has been that I'm reading just because I don't have anything else to do, all 605 interviews as short interviews, and it's taking a lot of time, and I have read all 605 answers, but it's been painstakingly, tedious work in terms of the speed, but it has been very meaningful because I get to see what people have said about their experiences in a meaningful way. So this is a kind of a short description of another member of the 4 researcher group for us. One decided to use en vivo because she felt like we have to do this quickly. We can't read all 605 questions. So she's doing en vivo analysis. I'm doing manual analysis. So we are going to present the comparison between the same set of data but using 2 different ways of analyzing, which will be very interesting, and we are planning to present it at ARA next year. So the reason that we are doing this is importance of understanding complexities behind individual experiences and challenges with big data and need for multiple perspectives and methods in data analysis. So some of the findings that we have, at least I was able to come up with from my manual analysis, is the need to understand heterogeneity of MOOCs participants and complexity behind their motives for participation. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. So for example, when you read their responses, it's clear that there are shared values. For example, some common shared values are sense of purpose, importance of control, pride as a self-motivated autonomous learner. But there are very diverse ways of pursuing these values that seem very shared. So that is what I mean by heterogeneity and complexity behind the data. So the diverse ways of pursuing the values are manifested in contradicting ways. So even within the shared values, the way they are manifesting the values are very different and sometimes are contradicting. For example, about assessment and certifications, people have very different views about assessment and certification. So let me give you an example. So shared values, sense of purpose, importance of control, time and content, pride as self-motivated, learning as fun, sharing knowledge, sense of confidence, empowerment through peer recognition. So these are shared values. So complex manifestation of values, for example, assessment certificates and job improvement. So these are shared. Assessment certificates and job improvement, they are important. That's the shared value. But how they are talking about it, if you read it by participant, is there are people who want to do better in their current job. And there are people who want to use MOOCs for changing and getting a new job. And there are people who are doing MOOCs for job-related in a way that they are seeking promotion within the job. So they will all show up as they are taking MOOCs to improve their job. But as you can see, depending where they are, their ideas and perspectives or thoughts about assessment certificates are very different. So for example, people who want to do better in their current job want the freedom to choose with no evaluation nor certificates. They just want to they want to take MOOCs and be able to do a little bit better in their current job. The fact that there is no evaluation nor certificate, it's an attraction for them. If they want to change their job through their experience in MOOCs, use skills on one's own time and pace with some form of assessment. So they want to take their work in MOOCs, go to a new job and say, hey, there's a certificate that I've taken all these courses from Stanford, Harvard. So this will put me more competitive in the job. Seeking promotion within the job, preference for assessment certificates that could be legitimately recognized by the employer. So they don't care about just assessment, just certificates, as long as they have something that can take to their boss and say, I've taken this and can you recognize my work in this? That would be the important issue. More examples, valuing freedom to choose, but also wanting more evaluation structure to help make that choice. And also, a lot of people ask for formal support in the informal learning environment. and learning just for the sake of learning, but they want their peer recognition about that. Okay. Okay, I have to stop at this point. I think I've gone over a minute or two, and some implications and moving forward, which we can talk about in our Q&A session. Thank you.
Just so you know, that if you get the slides, there are some examples of life change built within, people at different age groups that are lives are being changed through the MOOCs, and they're going back to grad school, they're getting new jobs. Thank you. They're getting new jobs, they're going back to grad school, and so forth and so on, and getting new incomes, starting a new business, retiring and starting a new business. So that's kind of the theme in here, using the skills that they're learning online when they're ordering information at a restaurant and so forth. And by the way, Charles Vest has now passed away, just as a little aside on there. So we have 5 minutes left, I think, for Q&A. Yeah, just if you want to get the papers, we've written 2 papers up on this. I'm happy to send me an email. They're in review related to some of this data of life change, but quite a varied from teens all the way up to people in their 70s and 80s. We've got some interesting quotes and phenomena. So
thank you very
yeah.
much, Curtis. Thank you.
Yep.
Has anyone any questions?
Yep.
Obviously, you've done your research. I wondered what you thought the important research questions we should be asking about MOOCs now.
You want to try start with that one? What questions should we be answering now or asking now?
For me, I'm biased as a critical researcher. I guess I am excited about MOOCs, but at the same time, I'm not. Let me just say, I probably would not offer a MOOC myself because I really like the intimate setting of the courses I'm teaching. I really value one-to-one face or virtual interaction with my doctoral students. So the idea of MOOCs for me is very, very daunting, and it's not me. But I also embrace the whole idea of MOOCs as a next big, not next, it's a big thing now. So I'm very interested in critical questions about something like, who is MOOCs really serving, and who is marginalized and marginalized by this whole idea of MOOCs. For example, in San Diego State University in the States, the professors are really critical about this issue of MOOCs, and their administrators trying to take the MOOCs as a way to, for the lack of better words, replace a lot of associate instructors. So if they take MOOCs, they literally, if they implement MOOCs from Harvard or Stanford for their students, for especially freshman engineering science classes, they can save a lot of money instead of hiring a lot of associate instructors who are teaching those courses. So those are the issues that are really kind of, for me, important, but a kind of dark side of MOOCs. So who are we serving and marginalizing through the implementation of MOOCs is something that I would be interested in.
Yeah, other questions, yeah.
You talked about this by listing lots of stuff that's happened recently, and
Yeah.
happening quickly. I just
Yeah.
wonder what you think the most helpful and maybe the most unhelpful thing that happened recently is. What's making this better, and what's happening that's making it worse? If you just pick one.
Yeah, I think the attention paid to translation is something important, and something we should be, all, in fact, researching intercultural awareness issues, language translation, the tools that are out there for language. That would be something that actually we should be looking at, going back to the earlier question. I think also the tools from the Stanford Venture Lab enable more collaboration than some of the other ones, looking at cross-cultural collaboration across these. To answer, again, the first question, that would be another research area that we should investigate. And I forget the other half of your question was what?
Is there something really unhelpful that's
unhelpful that's happening. I think being reactionary to things like plagiarism and all of a sudden having an honor code, I think we're way too reactionary to things and not thinking ahead about the impact of some of these. So there's consistent new announcements, whether we're firing presidents at Virginia and then rethinking that. Just people are knee-jerk reactions to all this and jumping and not having thoughtful plans, but we know that's the case. Yeah.
One more. Okay, one more question.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned that engagement is a major challenge for most of the MOOCs.
Yeah.
Because I believe MOOCs are relying currently on video or PowerPoint or slides,
Mm-hmm.
PDFs. What kind of innovative engagement methods you have seen or you visualize that could evolve for MOOCs?
Say the last half again. What kind of?
What kind of other engaging technologies do you visualize or engaging methods that could evolve for MOOCs, or if you have seen some other than the traditional?
Yeah, I think the people at Harvard have done a nice job of responding to the PR that's been out there about engagement, and I think they're coming up with new, and in fact they've released their data, much of their data, and scrubbed the data without names, so we all can all be analyzing it, but they're trying to look at, mine this data for not just completion, but actually what are the activities that they're engaged in, which are the activities they're selecting and why, and the routes in which people are going through that data. That's more important, I think. I'm going to let Mimi try and we'll end here. You have an engagement answer on that?
Sure. I think depending on what kind of course offering platforms they can use, they have different levels of engagement they are allowed to do. So first, something like Coursera, I think they have very tailored platform for their clienteles like Stanford and Harvard. So different kinds of levels of engagements are possible based on what kind of platforms you are afforded.
And I just want to say thank you for allowing us to come in here as Americans into this event. And there's been 3 people who have been helpful to me since I've walked in the room. And I just want to give them the last 3. I'll have one more left, but here you go. And of course, Fred's winking at me there, and he would like one. So I have one more left to the first person that comes up with a question during break time or later on. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we are, we're switching now, so there's the workshop in here.
The gentleman with the glasses had his hand up. You had your hand up?
Yeah.
You had your hand up? Sorry? You had your hand up? Or was it him? No. Which guy was it? That guy?
He's not walking down. It's okay.
Oh, he's way up there? Okay. All right. Okay. It's okay?
I don't know if you had the chance to find a case out for doing that site, but if you wanted to use those tables, I know neither places can do, but or get people, I don't know, to perk on that. But shall I leave it to you? I can't remember who's chairing this one, but hopefully they have.
I've been sent down, Curt.
You were the one with the question?
I was on the question, yeah. I could.
Clive, I'm
Thank you.
sorry, it has to be you that I cut short.
No, that's right. Thank you very much.
What was your question?
Community. One of the things today has been about the community. So I just wondered what your thoughts were about that.
And there's another session.
We're going to have to do that. And maybe back up outside. It's something that's taken away today, which I didn't expect to do. So I'm going to see you next.
Okay.
So I'll catch you outside.
All right.
I'm sorry, I'm doing so brutal.
You need to do that.
Away.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, lovely. All right, so our next session is Robert McIntyre, Open University, Open Education and the Promises We Make. So we've got about 40 minutes of the workshop
Yeah,
session.
yeah.
This is a workshop session, so do you want us to do anything in particular, or just hang out and wait
Hi.
for instructions?
Yeah, just hang out. Hang out.
Lovely. Okay, over to you.
Okay. So yeah, I'm from the Open University in Scotland, and I wanted to talk about how do we make this thing go away. That's one of the, if I close that.
Just minimise it, I think.
Minimise it? Okay. Good. I sort of want to say something about a little bit about the gestation of why I started thinking about this talk. Was that someone sent me one of those emails that said, oh, someone from the Open University with a widening participation and perspective must come to this conference to talk. It's going to be you, Ronnie. So what I did was, I live in the West Highlands of Scotland, so what I did was I actually went for a walk with the dog along the loch and thought, what am I going to talk about? You know, what am I going to talk about today? And I thought, I suppose partly it's a subset of Lorelai's question around actually what is the solution, you know, what was the question that MOOCs are a solution to, you know? And first of all, I wanted to start off by just asking people to sort of contribute to this. I mean, thinking about these letters MOOCs, and I mean, I think a lot of us are kind of uncomfortable with them in many senses, is that I wanted people to pick an enabling letter within MOOC. Is it the M? You know, is it the massive? Is that the thing that's enabling something in education, the massiveness or the marketingness? Maybe that's what the M stands for. Is it the openness that enables something within MOOC? Is that what it is? That it's openly licensed material that anyone access? This morning I was having a Twitter debate with someone who quite clearly believed that it was the online part of MOOCs that was the most important factor that enabled it. Or is it the fact that it's a course? I mean, people who've been hanging around the open education movement for a while, you know, understand that it actually started off with lots of discussions about learning objects, which are sort of disaggregated bits of content. You know, now that we're packaging them together into a course that's something coherent, a learning journey, is that the thing that's enabling something? So I just wanted to throw that out to the room, just to sort of think what do people think is the enabling word? Is it the M? Is it one of the O's, or is it the C? What's the most important bit of the MOOC?
It's online.
Online. Okay, so we've got one online. Oh, damn it, I forgot my notepad.
I don't know if the most important, but the most distinctive is the M.
Massive.
Yes.
No.
I'll go for open, because that's, you know, when you click on that button, it's because it's free. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm open to.
Open. Open. Open.
From the O you pick up the others.
Well, I was going to say that they're not always open as in free, they're just open as in those was, you know, they're not.
Yeah, but is open always free?
Yeah.
I mean, would we say that the BBC website's completely open for anyone to look at? It's not openly licensed. It's freely available content, but not openly licensed content.
But that's free isn't always open, not open isn't always free.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 After that.
So a bit like, yeah, carry on.
Massive is significant now.
Mhm.
That's happened since 2012.
Mhm.
It's really grabbed people's attention.
That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I just wanted to say I'm not against it.
You're right, that's why people have invested time and money into it. It's because of the M bit, I'm sure that's right. But for the actual user, maybe the M is less important than what the other one.
But if it's a connectivist perspective, and when we all know from managing online communities, if there isn't a critical mass of learners, you actually don't get that engagement with other people virtually, do you? You know, so maybe actually there is something in the massive for the learner too.
Is there, you've got lots of people doing like listener things on YouTube or on forums and things, talking to each other, teaching each other, engaging in some kind of learning, and they would say that the massive takes away from that it's harder to communicate in
Mhm.
forums with certain people.
Talk to each other.
Well, the argument that I've seen put forward by Stephen Dinnan is that we need a critical mass of diversity to work in favour of the importance of learning. So, and his figure that he's put forward is done by
It's medium.
Massive is anything from 150 up.
But then you can have a lecture theatre with 400 students.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
We did that for 1,000 years.
Yeah, but it is different, even 150 is different from 30, which my sort of past experiences working in closed online courses where we were always told, oh, you can't have more than 30.
Yes, that's true, yeah.
You know, 30 is the number, roundabout. You know,
Yeah.
you can work effectively with and communicate with people online, and now it's obvious that that's not the case.
Isn't it that MOOC is a meme and people don't know what it means?
Perhaps. Yeah. But it's a label, an uncomfortable label. I mean, sometimes I've been saying recently that, you know, because I work for the Open University and we happen to lead on a MOOC platform, you know, sometimes it's like even people sort of say MOOC when they mean open, and it becomes problematic for us as an institution in some senses. But I picked O, a bit like a lot of people here, and I think that's partly because I work for the Open University, and then I sort of thought, what is it that's in the O in Open University? Not just the Open University UK, but the Open Universities as a global movement. Well, the OU UK, which is the one I know best, is open to people, places, methods, and ideas, and that's our strap line. That's our, you know, that's how we promote ourselves, but also I think it's actually part of our institutional culture and the way that we approach things. And when you look at other open universities like in Catalonia or in the Netherlands and so on, there's some things that sort of join this open universities movement. Open to people. So no need for previous educational qualifications. Key thing in terms of enabling a whole bunch of things around widening participation, not just widening access, i.e. not just more people accessing education, but broadening the socioeconomic profile of those accessing it. Open to places and methods, and that's typically meant because of that geographic openness, trying to sort of create that sort of widespread. They tend to be large-scale institutions that cover whole areas, tend to engage in blended learning, have always experimented with online learning. You know, for some places it's about radio broadcasts and televisions, for other places it's like the internet, but it's been about experimenting in sort of broadcast types of learning. And as a consequence, open universities tend to have a sort of few things. They often have a very large student body and a significant number of WP students. So sort of massive, and I think it was mentioned earlier, you know, that some of those, like 20 years ago, one of, you know, Martin Weller's first online course, you know, had 20,000 odd students with a, you know, 70% retention rate. So, and I started to think, what does that mean? I mean, what is it? There's, at the time I was actually trying to understand the M a little bit, the M for marketing within Open. So I was actually reading quite a lot of marketing literature to try and understand the people who are sitting around the table now in open education discussions. Because it's not just actually idealists that sit around the table in open education discussions anymore, is it? It's actually marketing professionals. And I didn't understand them because I'm a geographer who lives in the West Highlands. And I don't necessarily encounter those kind of metropolitan people in my day-to-day life. So I thought I'd better read some of the literature, and I came across this literature about promises within marketing. And I started to think, what was the promises in open education? And I thought the promises we make at the OU sort of boiled down to sort of three promises. We design our materials and recognise that everyone's in a different place. So it doesn't matter what kind of educational qualifications you have, we will take you and support you. And our materials recognise that you may have no qualifications at all. We understand that you might be uncertain and not want to engage with learning, and you might need support. That support might come from a tutor, but also it actually might come from your fellow students. So that's part of the blend of blended learning, which is actually meeting face-to-face, and more commonly now about trying to develop online communities where students support each other. And then the third promise we make is that you'll gain recognition and credit, which actually for someone with no qualifications is a really important promise. So that's the sort of promises that I think the open education and the open universities make. So keep in mind that we're talking about the O in MOOC at the same time. So I just wondered, do these promises matter? This is a picture of my daughter trying to sort of achieve the promise of outdoor education on a sort of outdoor treadmill in Granada. Do these promises matter? I mean, what are the most important promises there in terms of open education? Are they all equal? And are some more equal than others? So I just want to sort of pass that back. I'll go back to the previous slide to think about those promises. I mean, what do people think? Do they think these are good? Do they think I've sort of captured these? Yes?
I would say one of the less important things possibly would be the equal background, that everyone can come in from having no knowledge of the subject matter whatsoever. There are lots of, chemistry 101 MOOC which anyone can take, knowing absolutely nothing. But at some point, in a traditional education, it's like, you do your GCSEs, you do your A-levels, you do your degree. Is it worth specialising like that? Or shall we just have one course, one MOOC, that every biologist on the entire planet does, and if you've done the GCSEs, you're going to get really bored for the first 3 weeks, and until we get to the advanced stuff. So I think, in a way, MOOCs need to become more specialised. All the basics have probably been done, and hopefully done well by this point in time, and things may be becoming less massive, but more specialised.
I was talking about the open university. I haven't quite gone to MOOCs yet, but... Anyone else? Do you think these are important promises for open universities, for openness in general? I suppose is what I'm talking about.
But the important thing would be having different levels.
Levels, okay.
I think, really follow on from what Juan said, it's something to do with structure. I've done a few open university courses as well, and I think what it provides is a structure for your study. The library's full of books, and you could read about anything, as you said on the earlier slide, you can read about anything anywhere. Oh no, that was Curt, sorry, last week. But the same principle there, yet what it does is sort of bounds up that stuff, and you're in there with another group of people. So
that's about designing the learning materials in a structured way that actually lead learners through.
There's something about it. That structure doesn't always work either with the OU or MOOCs, but it does give you that sort of thing. It's not the only thing to it, but it does give you a kind of a direction.
And we'll be certain, I mean, when I'm working as a learning designer and thinking about how I might design materials for a broad range of learners who have educational experience, I mean, those kind of structuring that learning journey seems important.
There seem to be quite a few constraints in there. If you take autonomy as a principle of MOOCs, one of the first key principles built in, depending on how you interpret that. But if you interpret it as being the learner has control and choice of what they're doing, in that set of principles there are some constraints on, I would say, on that autonomy. So the constraint of you will gain recognition, yes, and credit. Well, that might not be the choice. And we understand that you will need people to support you. Well, that's very broad actually as well. It's not necessarily it might be a constraint in some way if you insist on people needing support.
And sometimes in open universities we do insist on people having support, whether they want it or not. Yeah.
I think the middle one is the most interesting for me. I think if you, and I've taught a couple of OU courses myself, I think if you say to somebody, you're paying some money, you're doing an OU course, we'll support you wherever you come from, whatever, there's a particular set of implications. Those implications are that you have to provide structure, services and support in a particular kind of way. And I think for OU, does a pretty good job of doing that. But it's the whole package that you have to provide.
Mm.
You have to provide that package for each course. The courses in the postgrad and the science parts of it. When you do MOOCs, I think precisely the autonomy issue starts turning it upside down and says it's not the provider's responsibility entirely to make sure that you have the support. The provider is now saying anybody on the planet can do it. There's no ways that we can provide support, etc., etc., etc. We even understand it.
Mm.
So what we're going to do is we're going to provide something. It's up to you guys. However, within that, and I think it's one of the issues that you guys raised in the paper, there's a whole lot of implications. What happens if somebody comes on a MOOC and the discussion just goes up to postgraduate level, goes to postdoc level, which often happens. And I've been on both sides of that, certainly as a learner. I've been in a MOOC where it's kind of going around and people are kind of hedging and not saying...
The levels are unclear.
The levels are unclear, and then suddenly somebody comes in with something really interesting. And it's completely at postdoc level. In fact, it's at mature researcher level.
I think that thing about uncertainty.
And it runs away from everybody else. One of the implications of that, I think that's one of the things that MOOCs don't do. They say, well, you have to be, well, you can be autonomous, and if you're autonomous, then there's a whole lot of sinking and swimming going on here.
Absolutely, and that's why the sort of socioeconomic profile perhaps is different, you know.
Yeah. I was just going to say that the stats we've had today have had it for years, and that's a couple of years now. If people are experienced learners can find a way through that for all the reasons we just talked about, and if you're not an experienced learner, you just drop out. That seems to be or fade away from it. Drop out.
And I suppose that's why I stressed to highlight, because at the Open University in our formal curriculum, you know, we feel that these are key promises, that we're going to support you because we understand that you're likely to be uncertain. You know.
In Italy, you had quite a lot of support for students. Maybe not be enough, but there is.
Absolutely, it's never quite enough, but absolutely.
But so that it's kind of built in for people who are less experienced learners, essentially. Beginning learners. But MOOCs aren't built that way, and I've been some MOOCs which I will struggle with. And I'm a very experienced learner.
And I think that's why one of the key questions for me is around this sort of big sort of thing that actually what we're saying is that these massive courses are somehow widening participation, and that or they have the promise of widening participation. It's just that we're not quite doing them right yet. I mean, is there a way that we can do them? Because at the moment, what they've done is widening access. I mean, I don't know, people are familiar with this differentiation between widening access and widening participation. Widening access, more people accessing it. Widening participation, broadening the socioeconomic profile of those that access it. I mean, so for example, the expansion of higher education in the UK post-97 broadened access. More people went to university in the UK, but the socioeconomic profile of those people who went didn't change. More middle class people went, and that, you know, but not more working class people went. In fact, the 60s was actually better for that than anything else. Yeah. So, what are the I suppose I wanted to now get into groups, yeah, just for this last bit, and actually ask, you know, having discussed those promises within the open education movement, are there promises, you know, and obviously these, you know, I was being deliberately simplistic about promises with the open education movement to try and sort of stimulate discussion. But I wonder, are there promises that we might want to make for MOOCs? Are there some key promises? I mean, there's been some interesting ones already mentioned today about, I promise we will connect you with other like-minded people. Seems to be a big sort of thing that's coming up. I promise it will be fun. You know, so I mean, are there particular promises? And I just thought maybe we could. There's two sort of groups here, two orbs. I've got some bits of paper, and I wondered if we could just spend the rest of the time. I put this up because I just really like this. This has got a rich picture from the systems course at the OU, and it's got like about the miners' strike, which so I was just put that up. And Tarzan, yeah, absolutely. You know, and this. It is, yes, Tarzan, yeah. So yeah, and obviously I just thought I'd put an elephant in the room. as well. So yeah, and I've got some paper and some pens, some really old-fashioned technology, been around for... Yeah, sure.
Who are we?
Who are you?
No, who's the we in those? The left wing and the right wing.
As educators.
As institutions or as educators?
As educators.
The right wing is over there.
Wow, I've actually got 2 pads. I did ask for a room that was a little bit more... But look, I'll pass 1 pad there. Oh, did I hit your head there?
No.
You will regret that when I start drawing.
No, the reason I put the rich picture up was because I don't want to tell you how to sort of map out your thoughts about what the promises are, but Peter Checklin's stuff about rich pictures is very good. Eh? Do you know Peter Checklin's daughter's here today?
Is she?
Yes. Here's some pens. A pile of pens. Are you going to facilitate it, are you?
I'm facilitating.
Excellent. You can, yeah, draw. You can draw. Well, I just thought I'd put that up there just to suggest you might want to draw a rich picture.
Subliminal.
And also, I'm really glad because actually Peter Checklin's daughter's here today, but she isn't in the session. Because I actually did a session with rich pictures once before. Yeah. And she went like, I really like that. That was my dad. She works for the OU, so she was co-presenting with Frida Wolfenden earlier. You don't need to draw to do rich pictures. Everybody, well, the idea with a rich picture is that everybody draws something, but you pass the pen around and you actually discuss what you're going to draw and agree it. And if you can't agree, then you show that you're not agreeing about different bits.
Well, as we're the left-wing group, we'll do an impoverished picture. Is that okay?
An impoverished picture. And they're going to do the MOOCs as a product of neoliberalism picture. Which is my political standpoint.
Profile racing is one of the main promises. Profile racing.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Profile racing for the
Marketing.
Yeah. Well, that's to get the academics to do it.
Absolutely.
To agree to have their film, to be filmed.
But that's the same in open education. I mean, do you see the big survey that just did in 2012 around motivations for open education? And the biggest one was actually, it started off people talking about altruistic motives, but actually when you start to dig at it, it's like, oh, I want to be a really famous academic, and then for the managers, it's like, I want my institution to be really famous.
Let's draw a rising star. Oh wow, you can draw.
Yeah.
Without the academic. Put a mortar board. Yeah.
That is good drawing, isn't it?
Be amazed what I can do.
Fantastic.
I'm wasted in one.
Somebody else released me on LinkedIn yesterday, and I did wonder if the mortar board was photoshopped onto the picture.
So it's rising stars, isn't it?
So the question we're answering is, so who would be making promises to them? Would it be the platform?
Yeah, it's the providers, it's the ex-MOOC.
Yeah, the platform people, yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, don't say that. What do you call them? Provide? I wouldn't call them providers.
No.
They're not in it for what they can provide.
No. Well, it's not. We're corporates. Yeah.
No, they're tech startups.
platforms, whatever you want to
Yeah,
call
so
them.
Future Learning,
What is it?
Coursera,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
just,
Generic
if I just do that.
Just do a pound note.
We know that. We all know what that is. But, they should be. It'll be a completely different story on him.
They are the packers, those who provide the package to what we provide. Yeah.
It's interesting. I think that people were talking about what these people promised was this visibility and stability, that it wouldn't crash.
That it'll be different.
That we don't have to do the tech.
Yeah, that you don't have to do the tech.
It's outsourcing, basically, isn't it?
I don't know what the Coursera one is. Is that like a...
It's something like an 8, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm really not. I should be. Hey, well, look, I put their names in it. That's a present. That's a present that people are giving.
And it's the packet of the present what they provide. Yeah.
Yeah, how much more do you want?
No.
This is good. This is good.
I'm just explaining what you.
Yeah, not.
I probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
For the money, should I do the money dropping out?
Money
Yeah.
comes out.
It's raining money.
That's a venture capital company.
Euro, yeah.
Oh, is that the euro?
Yeah.
I can't do anything else. It's just raining money.
Yeah, it's raining.
Into the pot.
Of the bankers.
Yeah, it all comes back to them.
It's the bloody bankers.
Let's blame them. Oh, and then what here? We should have the world. Because you get promised the world, don't you? I don't know.
But actually, the promise was that actually we were going to educate the world, reach the world.
Yeah.
They're promising to educate the world,
Yeah.
but they're promising the world to students.
Oh.
Yeah. Not to be too cynical. This is supposed to be a positive day. But it is supposed to be all these people
We
all
can't use the
over the
word
world.
without raising the spectre of them being broken.
Absolutely.
All these people all over the world are supposed to be getting this open education. We're missing.
So we need to get the promises in, don't we?
Yeah.
Because there was.
With sort of arrows,
Because the people who've really made the big splash in MOOCs and open education are those institutions with massive reputations already.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So,
to turn it upside down. Right. Unless you work at Cambridge.
yeah.
We're doing it.
But Edinburgh don't need it either, but they're doing it.
No, they don't need more reputation. Got too much ready.
Absolutely. No, I think Edinburgh sometimes. Is this mic on? Yeah, I'm going to stop. I'll say that later. I'll move away from myself when I've got this.
Clearly how you educate people at the moment, so that's a wee bit limited.
I think you can only count what you can measure as well. So I think what we're saying is that people come and hear the different kind of things, to learn different ways.
Hey, how do I know when this session's over?
Oh, it's 20 past. It's 20 till 20 past.
Oh, that's
2.
excellent. That's
So
good.
there's loads of time for us to be completely.
Really interesting point. You count the number of people who doesn't finish the book. I mean, I think we read the chapter, why we not just look at... I've been in about 3 lately, and I only wanted to see one thing. One was about Beethoven's sonatas, and I only wanted to see one bit of it. And I wouldn't have signed up for a course for it because it was too flaming dear. But I was quite happy to see a wee bit of it.
And is that something we can put down as what?
I think it's more like I always finish a book, but it's the newspaper, isn't it? It's like, do you finish a newspaper?
No.
Always leaves the sports section out.
You know, whenever I go to the Virgin Lounge, I always steal a copy of Wallpaper from the Virgin Lounge, and the FT, but I never read it cover to cover.
Here's an interesting thing. I read a newspaper from the back to the front, right?
Do you?
Schools and went backwards to the front, right? You can't do that in a MOOC. Well, maybe you should start at, maybe the start cloud wouldn't be a good example. But if you start at the end and see, well, what's learning out, and then come back.
Aye, the Strathclyde one. Aye, the Strathclyde one. See who the murderer was at the end, you know.
But that's what they do in Columbo. They tell you who the murderer is at the start.
Do they?
I thought that was the basic premise of Columbo.
Yeah.
They always showed you the murderer, and then it was Columbo going, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
We're crowding you out.
Yeah, go, come and go away.
Want to pick something in?
No, I just, the way I think about it is it's just a bit like it's this university course on a platform designed as, this is a university giving you a whole course, and we're trying to do the widening access thing, and these are people who are probably not looking to come to a university course. We should be tempting them into something that isn't putting itself forward as that. So
Is it finally realising the promise of the public of the HE as a public good?
I don't know, should you be tempting them all to go to university? Given choice is good, but you know, I mean, does everybody want to do it? They might just want to know a wee bit about such and such and so on, so it doesn't necessarily mean that they want to take a degree in higher music. Or nor should they.
So you think even the OU, much loved the OU, it still is a replica of a British university.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's modules and credits and this and that, and your learning is, you know, full
In big chunks.
You do an exam and big chunks, and you know, it's. I mean, I've been halfway through it all. You push, I think I've learned enough now. I've paid for it. I don't even going.
And that was my point about American universities. American universities are better chunks. They have smaller chunks, so they've already broken it down in a more interesting way. So kind of. Are we answering any of those questions?
No.
So no. Should we get to number 2 then? Ah, okay. So that only means that we.
Well, can I have to finish question 1 before we want to get to number 2?
You think? Oh, okay.
I mean, I think.
Anyone got anything to add? Well, at the moment, MOOCs promise more for more people, so increasing access, but question mark next to participation. They imply quality, is that brand name? Is that important? I must confess I was slightly lost track on the application of the US motivated instructional design based at trade
No,
but
that's the point. That's the point. It's an
is that something?
design model.
Yeah, is that something that is implied in all MOOCs? Is that something that is explicit in all MOOCs?
There is a particular learning design discourse, isn't there, around how a MOOC ought to be.
So I don't think that one is the key.
Which
I don't think that one
Diana's
fits
was
there,
about.
actually, Fred,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Sorry?
I don't think that one fits there. We're
Which
not
one?
promising that, the instructional design.
Yeah, okay.
So if you take a MOOC, will it be in a certain format with a certain philosophy, shall we say, behind it?
Hope not.
Well, it will.
It will, yeah.
I'm asking
Well,
questions.
I don't know.
It will, unconsciously.
We'll leave that one in.
But what surprise, not surprise, but what I find interesting is that exactly to the point that she mentioned, you know, that we are even now, right now, the MOOCs are just essentially taking the videos, the PowerPoints, it's essentially taking the whatever you do traditionally and just bolting it online.
Yeah.
There's no real innovation around how using the technologies could make it engaging. It's still taking it's because what are you doing? You're video recording the lecture, or you're just putting up his slides.
But it's really interesting. I mean, I know this academic, he's a mathematician who works, he's sort of, and he works at the OU, and he did his first MOOC where it was Sage on the Stage, videos of maths lectures, and he went, oh my God, what have we been doing for all this time? We should just be videoing people and putting them online. Why are we writing these courses? So he just sort of went like all this other instructional, all this other learning design stuff and embedding activities and making it interactive is all just a load of rubbish. We should just be filming clever people.
I totally disagree.
I know it is, but it's so interesting.
To me, the dropout represents the fact that what does not work in the classroom, you're now massively exactly getting the same
To be honest, I think that's overstated. I do.
Well,
the dropout rate. I mean, how many courses, how many books have you started? You go into it for all kinds of reasons. I've been at least 3. I had no intention of finishing it. I was kind of floating around or wanted one wee bit. Blah, blah, blah. So,
I think that's okay for someone who one of the educational halves. If you're an economic and educational half, it's okay to dip in to get that just-in-time learning. If you're an educational have not,
but is that not?
I mean, there's a guy. Do you know a guy, Orman Simpson? Is this sort of yeah? And I mean, he talked about the sort of the harm of non-completion. You know, what is the psychological harm of actually not completing? If you're an uncertain or unsure student and you go, and he was actually talking about analyses he's done of open universities, of the dropout rates.
Well, actually, I've been kicked out of 3 universities. I've been kicked out of a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD. And actually, I learned more by being kicked out than becoming.
No, but I mean, if you're looking at the demographics of people who are participating, they're not the people who you would be thinking of what is going to happen.
That's come up several times, hasn't it? Diana's.
I'm not arguing for that, by the way. I'm just saying, you know, that.
But so I think one of the at the moment, you know, one of the promises that's a little bit empty is around this. Well, actually, because I actually think it is about access. It's about the same way that post-97 education was about access for those.
Well, I didn't make it clearly in my talk, but when we did the research for the data for community content, we found, you know, the district-wide content thing, we found there is no content. Actually, that's why we came up with the learner-generated context group. So once you've got access, you then need better content. When you've got better content, you need better context. So actually, there is no killer content for enabling people to learn. So the interesting thing, like with the research that me did, because he's talking about people actually using that things in particular ways, that in a sense what the university is pushing out, it's not being used in the way that it's being pushed out. It's like people saying, oh, I could use that to do this and this. And
And actually that's, you know, sometimes in a campus-based university, that's what we really want people to do, because we actually want people to actually take some of that content that we're providing in the lecture and actually apply it in their own context. In fact, you know, it's like one of the things that we strive to do, we're desperate to do.
Sorry,
all the widening access stuff that our university does, because we're in lots of deprived areas, they don't do traditional university stuff to get people into it. They do things like, you know, fun plays about chemistry and have taster days and interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like the MOOCs could be done differently. They don't have to be, here is a course about a thing. It could be more like the things they're doing with the interactive storytelling on YouTube, where they're retelling like the Lizzie Bennet diaries, and it's not just a series of videos. They get people commenting and interacting with the characters, so they're thinking about their motivations and being like, why is she doing this? And then people comment, and then they're like, by the way, you've just learned Pride and Prejudice and gone into all this stuff, and here's some background information.
I completely agree. I think the most interesting one of the was the storytelling format. I haven't looked at it, so I don't really know, but that storytelling approach I think is really very powerful potentially. And I think one of the most interesting things
it's because before we had civilization, we learned from storytelling. So
but one of the most interesting things is this whole MOOC HE thing reminds me very much of Second Life and virtual worlds in HE.
Oh yeah.
We all built these big islands.
I was in there.
The first thing they did so was that. And what was the first thing the universities did? They built themselves a campus so they could walk up the stairs virtually, to sit down virtually and watch a virtual lecture.
They've done with the MOOCs. They've created a platform.
In fact, I worked on a GIST project that tested whether how realistic a campus needed to be for a student to learn.
I used to run Education UK Ireland, which was not funded by anybody. We did it ourselves. Anyway.
So that's exactly the point. I mean, when you mentioned this dropout, I totally agree that there can be various reasons why people drop out. But I think that's exactly the whole thing. Like, you know, these interactive methods like storytelling or like games.
I mean, like
Websites or videos, forums.
YouTube is massive. I mean, YouTube is huge. I mean, I built my own. I think about it. I was running this project with social housing tenants up in Aberdeen, where I was actually trying to design some learning materials about fuel poverty designed by those in fuel poverty. And, so we were coming up with some prototype solutions about how to do it. And of course the first thing they said was like, where do you go to learn something? They were like, YouTube. And then I was, at the time I was building my own house, and I realized that without a 3G signal and my mobile phone, when I got stuck when I was building my house, I don't think I could have got any further without YouTube. Because I'd have to, and even some of the tradesmen who came in, they were like, hold on, I'll just go and look at, because every manufacturer, a boiler manufacturer would have a whole bunch of YouTube videos. The plumber would be on site going, it's different, hold on, let me look it up on YouTube. And they're sitting there looking it up, learning.
More like it goes Google, YouTube, and then things like.
Yeah, so YouTube is,
So I think your point is a really, really good one. That's what I mean. We're promising that, but we're not going to deliver it because there's all kinds of challenges to it.
The first is building the university online again. Like you said,
and that's and that's okay for some. I'm quite keen on it.
I think I think we make openness in our own form.
But I used to teach the history of technology, and the thing you find with any new technology is the first form that it takes is to enable the previous form.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then people learn.
And
Say,
then
okay, we can do this differently.
But I think the one of the most helpful things about this whole debate has been that making a pedagogy, or even two pedagogies, synonymous with a platform. It's a bit of technology. That MOOC thing, and it's all sort of designed by one or two people around a particular bloody technology. It's not the same thing.
Who will have an instructional design background?
Well, I don't know what's the same. The American.
But I do think there is something there. It's like we get confused between actually what we want, what the technology is, and what we want it to enable. I mean, what the promise is around these MOOCs is that we want to enable like widespread access to educational materials and widen the socio-economic base of education. Well, that's what politicians say. But actually, we just get completely, but we get completely caught up when we actually start a discussion about what it is. We get completely caught up in a whole bunch of other things, don't we?
Nobody entirely knows what they want MOOCs to do anyway, because we don't want to turn education free, because we'd all be out of a bloody job.
But at the same time, not everybody should want to do the same things with it.
The nature of the job would change. It would qualitative.
Not everybody should want to do the same thing with it.
Then it's not free. Social cost.
At the moment, it's running off the backs of already paid for university courses. So.
That'll be interesting when it was in.
And marketing budgets is what it's running off the back of.
It's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. So much money is going into MOOCs from universities when actually all the content is out there. It's actually how you aggregate it and present it in different ways. People are self-curation with YouTube. It's like we need to be. We don't have to have these massive systems. There's all of that surplus of content. We need to think about how we curate that content.
Actually, there is a bloke in Japan, and I can't mind his name, and he's doing MOOCs with games. I went in, I thought the games were rotten actually, but I think it's quite an interesting concept. It's unfortunately it's a computing course he's doing, so that's really unfortunate. But the whole idea of building games with your learners or your potential learners and using them, putting them up in open source, letting people play in them to learn specific things is actually really interesting.
So if it is about those things, what promises ought we to be making to enable those things to happen? What are the enabling things to make these kind of things that we've read? The conversation moved on to like what it should be. What would enable it to happen?
No, I was just adding because you mentioned this MOOC game.
I'm going to leave you at that.
Nip out for a minute.
Summary.
No, but I will.
Let you cry.
I will ask for one in
10 minutes or so?
No, what time do we finish? 20 past. So I'll ask for someone. Yeah, 8 minutes.
Okay.
8 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to publish this.
Are you? Hey, don't you realise this is part of my research for my paper?
Promise my picture. Yeah.
I put it in my CDSA last week. I was going to write a paper about the promises of open education.
I can't think of anything else really. That's nice.
Have we answered the question?
Oh yeah.
We're going to come back in about 8 minutes for some feedback.
At the moment, we don't know about them.
I'm running a session. Yeah?
We were hoping to go to the loo or something. We heard you say I'm running a session. It came loud and clear. And it was like, oh, what's that? Leslie Nielsen.
It was Frida. It was Frida. She was going like, what? Yeah.
These translation students, I mean, we're saying the easier ones to get people with some experience of learning, so really don't have experience, they're the hardest ones to engage. So what you're saying there is that level of engagement will eventually be a bit determined of whether they get...
Absolutely. You want to watch, what's his name again, Nick Clegg's speech about it. That's where it's coming from. Yeah. No, I mean, I know it didn't seem like a film properly, but it's absolutely fundamentally revolutionary. And nobody's paying very bit of attention to it. And this is what it comes. So that question of how that happens is actually a really important one. So what do you need? Okay. Engaging content, relevant content, context that's meaningful, places for support, places for engagement.
Ricky, you got to write this down. Because you've only got a few minutes.
Doing a little cylinder.
Data. Yeah. Simple words are data.
Big data, yeah.
Big data.
And there's a lot of
Where is it?
a lot of people are asking where the data is.
Yeah, I think that's very, very good. That the big data has now left not a lot of room for it. That's right. Yeah.
It was when someone over there mentioned Second Life. I remember when Second Life sort of hit, I worked on a number of Second Life projects, as I'm sure we all did. And
I thought that.
And so I worked on this one called SCOME, which was not school, not home. It was actually on the team grid, and I was one of the facilitators. And there was massive amounts of data. I think even more because it involved adults interacting with young people. So there was all sorts of geolocation data, and I remember it being presented with probably thousands and thousands of pages of data, and just going like,
what do I do with it?
It's like. The only thing I can think is like, just because we can collect it doesn't make it mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it was.
That's true, isn't it? They have sessions now, don't they? Like Simon Buckingham did one about how you look at data. Like now you've got it all. What do you do?
Yeah, I used to work in KMI with Simon. He's gone to Australia now.
Has he really?
Yeah.
Now I have a nice alternative that she said could be big data or something like local
data, she said. Link big data to local data.
Local sourced data.
Is this about linked data, about linking data at different scales and stuff like that?
No, what you were saying is the stuff that comes out of that learning plan.
The tool that they've got.
Of hers.
Yeah.
That's small data or local data. She's like
Locally sourced data.
From their tool.
Local data.
I think
little data. Little data.
Because I think the big, I think it isn't about big data. I think it's about little data. I think it is about little data, about actually locating, getting much more data about what's happening in particular places. I think that's.
It's actually, I think if you combine those, it's about contextualized data. So one of the things about big data is it's often decontextualized. But if you want the sort of data that's going to give you a really rich picture, it's got to be, I think, richly contextualized, and then it becomes very problematic.
Because when I ask for analytics on some of the open content I've produced, I mean, we do a lot of face-to-face events to support the use of open content, and what I do is I ask for the data by geographic location. So if I'm doing an event, if I know that someone's running an event in the Scottish borders, I'm looking for a peak of I'm looking to see if actually people are then logging on and doing it post-event. So that locatedness is important, because I actually then want to, because then I need to go back and say to the people who are paying for this open content, well, look, we're doing this and it's having an effect locally, and I can track it. I have some data, even if it's actually, if you looked at the reliability, it might be dodgy.
It might be local to an event like that you're talking about, an event in a physical location, or it might be local to an event like I worked on Blackboard, and you didn't get a lot of useful data. One of the things I found really useful and really encouraged me was to see the stuff being used at the time that the students were doing their research. I thought that was really encouraging, the fact that you planned it for this earlier point, but they still had access to it.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
So the event and the research.
So I'm going to pull everybody back now. I'm going to pull you all back from the brink. I'm going to pull you all back from the brink. Someone's going to have to go up to the front and talk about the picture. So, right, are you going to talk about the picture?
Me too.
Yeah, go on then.
I'll try and explain it.
Okay, I'll hold it up. There's a mic.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the group A.
Group A, is it?
Group A.
Definitely group.
That's ethics. Guarantee.
All right, where do you want? Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Okay.
And then smart, because it's all yours.
Right, go.
Right, one more.
Okay, talk.
Oh, right, okay, sorry. So we said about the promises that big data can make. So we've got big data down here, big data, little ethics, because we think ethics really hasn't come in so much, the promises, and we love ethics, and we've got little data which is contextualized, which is more useful, so that's why there's a tick there. We think MOOCs can offer the community, so it's about a community, there's a big hug for a community. And I'm doing the positives first. We said people get new skills from it. We actually started with the fact that academics become rising stars. So the idea is, the promise that we make to academics is that we'll make you big someday. This will make you everything. And then we were talking about, in 2012, how the ex-MOOCs came in, and suddenly it was and we're saying that's the institutions going, whoa, stop this CMOOC stuff. We want this to look like what we know and love and we make money from. So we want to have that. Yeah, I know. I've given up. I'll do consultancy. And then we were saying this, the gap between the students and the rising stars. The idea was that we would bring these two together, so the students would actually be able to be taught by world-class academics from around the world, Michael Sandel, etc. Them and 20,000 others.
Taught,
yes.
not learn.
Yeah, there's no teach. Yeah. So we had, and they're getting smaller and smaller because they're further and further away from the real academics. And then we were saying about marketing, technology, corporations, governments, and efficiencies are all the interests that pull in the line between the academics and the students, so it gets rid of the connections. We said this is given to us in a package, so these are the platform providers. So this is Future Learn and edX and Coursera, and they've promised us this thing that will facilitate learning for the whole world. But actually what it's caused is there's a social divide, because these are the institutions that are the elite institutions that already had a very high profile. And yes, and they're basically, the platform providers have lots of money and they have the data and it goes into a pot of gold. This is the cynical side. We were getting quite creative, probably. But I think that's pretty much, these are the institutions, they get more students. That was another promise, that you'd have more students. So yeah. Oh, and there's social media on the outside of the box making money because they're getting our data. So we are the product, we know that, don't we? But there we are.
Thank you. Comments, questions from group A too?
Top that, B team. Come on, B team, let's.
All right. B team.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure, right. Are you hold it?
I'll hold it.
Do you want to have the microphone? Yeah, I have the mic.
Okay, you can see that we were obviously, oh, that's all, that's it.
That's it.
You can see that obviously we were more graphically challenged, and it came out a little bit more like a stream of consciousness or unconsciousness, depending on that. So we'll try and make a little bit of sense of this. So we covered a lot of the same ground as you'd expect, more access and so on. We felt that was one of the promises of the MOOC. There was something about quality. We felt that MOOCs were trying to say that there's a quality, and it's often by the university, or you're saying an individual brand was some kind of important there. I'm going to jump over that one for a second. Lowering costs. Option to opt in and out. We had a big debate about this, about a sort of a long-standing MOOC debate about if people opt in and out of that. Is that okay? Does that mean anything? Does that mean that the student themselves has more autonomy, and we've let go that kind of idea of the course, so the students could come in and go? And then we had another great debate about university level stuff, is that what we're doing is obviously replicating university level courses. And we talked a little about the OU as well, did the same sort of thing. And is that really appropriate? If we put university level courses out there and we say they're open, and we find that university trained people come in and use them, is that really a surprise? So we're saying that maybe we should sort of break that down a little bit. We also talked, jump back up here, a little bit about what's the embedded models in there. We're a bit worried about this whole instructional design stuff. Is that right, guys? We were a bit worried that it was there was something embedded inside MOOCs. And I'm saying even in my university we started talking about instructional designers, which we've never talked about that before. And we felt that come from the kind of MOOC world of that. So we have experts, instructors. It's funny looking over the top there. Sorry.
I mean, I think that's an interesting promise. You know, I mean, at the moment we say, like, you know, we might say a promise you make in school is that you'll sit quietly in the classroom.
Yes.
In the 1950s. Now we're saying a promise in a MOOC is that you'll learn in this particular way.
Yes, learning. And so you have the subject expert, the instructional designer, and then the student. And this seems to be a demarcation we've seen quite a few times. Now, we started our stream of consciousness, got even more unconscious at this level. Ban the word MOOC, yeah. Change job descriptions, whatever that means. What have we got there? There's actually an interesting one, I think, around here, is we have this promise that we're going to somehow develop our students, make them more self-determined learners and so on. And we had an interesting, I think you said that actually, that when students drop out of these things, what messages are we giving back to them? Is that enabling? Or are we ever giving them more in control, or are we actually saying, no, you failed, you're coming to MOOC and failed?
I think in your group around the sort of dropout, I mean, some people were saying, well, you know, sometimes dropping out and making a conscious decision not to complete is enabling in itself. Fred. But I thought that's an interesting point.
It could be either way. Yes, you could.
Maybe it's an interesting point for someone who's confident, for someone who's less certain.
If it's a conscious decision, that's enabling. If it's, I've now got lost and I can't do it. No, I was being a student at that one. Okay, so then down, and then we've got this other, more promises down here, which I think are, again, going back on the kind of positive sides about quite engaging material. And some of the stuff is good. I mean, even the kind of ex-MOOCs are quite interesting. Better engagement, storytelling, we saw an example there, games and so on, mix of methods. So we could actually have this kind of enabling part of education, and that may be one of the promises we have here, is this, that MOOCs are helping us to develop this kind of new models.
Some promise around innovative.
A promise around innovation? Go on. I was going to throw it back to you guys. I was going to throw it back now. Yes.
About not recreating the university online.
Yes. We were really worried about that because, as I say, we've really created little mini universities, or little mini university courses, and then, as I say, we're surprised that little university people come along and use them.
I think one of the early promises of MOOCs was that we wouldn't create those things, that it would be innovative, that it would be different, that we would bring in game-based learning, that we would bring in all these different.
But even the size of a course, you know, the sort of like 6 weeks. Oh, it looks a little bit like half a course, and you know, knowledge doesn't, in my experience, knowledge doesn't really kind of fit into those little blocks. And I quite like this discussion that Diana was talking about this morning about mini MOOCs and breaking it down into something much smaller, more kind of not fragmented, but just smaller, bite-sized stuff. Anything else, folks?
Of course, I mean, one of the things that I would say is that private sector providers are better at doing those little chunks of learning.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
And is that maybe why private sector providers are, I don't know, is that why they look at these opportunities around MOOCs? Because they can actually see that they're better at chunking that learning. Whereas you work at a university, you're used to thinking about it as being a long time, aren't you?
Yes. We have a distant voice here.
I just wanted to drop something in, which is important to me, and not to hear somebody more sensible talk about it. You can look at Audrey Waters' keynote from CITES 14, which is, if you've got a company that's funded by venture capital and they're trying to make their way in the world, I'm not saying all platforms are like that, that you have a vested interest in stressing, one could say overstressing, the innovative nature. So you've got to say that the innovation is disruptive, it's got to be different, and actually has to specifically not recognise all the ways in which it is very much embedded in the history of educational technology.
Absolutely, and Martin Weller's emphasised that point in his some of the provisional chapters for Battle of the Open. He's emphasising this emphasis on disruption and disruptive technologies. And also, that's part of neoliberalism, isn't it? We always like to sort of emphasise disruptive innovation within neoliberalism, because neoliberalism is quite often about smashing old economies and generating new economic
the really
opportunities.
scary thing for education is that the critique of Clayton Christensen's disruptive innovation is already well played out in other areas that tech startups have been. And it's pretty sad that education just takes it all, without arguing about it.
But I think we are arguing about it.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of us today who are actually asking some critical questions, and we'll go back to our institutions and hopefully ask critical questions.
How does that go back up though? I think that's the problem.
Alt anti-MOOCs.
And did you say you were going to chair it?
Yeah, I'll chair it. It's only unbiased. If we buy,
independent.
Yeah, I'll draw. We'll draw for food.
No, but I think with, as far as this disruptive, my feeling is that it's just the beginning of it, and in that sense that with all the kind of new 3D technologies coming in, with wearables, with augmented reality, it will allow many different ways of experiencing knowledge construction and all. So this disruptor, I think what we have currently, the MOOCs, they are definitely not in it. We can't call them disruptive innovations. It's just a.
But we do have to take care that they don't settle down and become, because actually,
But if with newer methods, if you're walking into a museum and you have this Google Glass or something, and then all the knowledge about that artifact comes up to you can just imagine the kind of possibilities.
Because I think that we end up creating these things, the foundations that we lay down actually then condition the structures that we build upon them. I think that, when I look at openness and the way that different universities have done open, they've all done it in different ways, and it's conditioned by the institutional culture. The way the OU does open is conditioned by the way it does its standard offer. And I was having a colleague ask me, because we've got this project around supporting open educational practices and the practices around the creation of open education. And he said to me, he says, it's all very well giving away our content because there's content everywhere. What I really don't want you to tell them about is how we do stuff, because our practices is what differentiate us. And I sort of said, well, actually, do you know what? People know how other institutions do stuff, and they don't copy it, because actually every institution thinks the way they do it is right. And that's why they then replicate it when they create their MOOCs and their open. But so, while we shouldn't worry about some of these early structures in MOOCs, we also should pay some attention to those foundations, because they may condition our responses to those in the future.
In that case, I think having the fact that there are startups coming out which are more from, we don't have the burden of the past cultural or whatever, will allow them the freedom to go and think in very different ways. Whereas you're right, if you're coming from a particular university which has a culture, they will. So I think in the initial few days where the startups have just decided to partner with the universities and adopt their way of doing it, it is what we have a replication. But the fact that they are startups,
they're still going through there. Yeah. So I think I suppose they're picking up sort of Fred's background around paradigms. Thomas Kuhn's work around sort of paradigm shifts and that sort of. I suppose we're actually looking at some of those early discussions where a number of things exist. You'll be able to talk more eloquently than I will.
A lot of my work now comes from Paul Feuerabend's work.
Okay.
On paradigm shifts, which is actually about how paradigm shifts come from thinking we say outside the box, but actually more about intuitive and doing things that don't seem to make sense, and then bringing them back. So he actually argues slightly differently to
Thomas Kuhn.
No, differently to Kuhn. It's Paul Feuerabend.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yes, yeah.
So he advised me on what I'm doing now. But that's an important point. We're at a disruptive phase. Part of the thing is we don't know what that next phase will be. You have to experiment with different stuff. So if you just enable the university, you're definitely not getting the right answer. It's working for now because university's got a huge legacy. Government are pointing at people saying you have to have qualifications to do stuff. There's a lot of weight being put on people getting a certain kind of qualification, but that's not what the next generation learning is going to be.
And I think that's the most for me. That's the most worrying thing. Not a kind of sorry.
So I was going to say yes. The thing we just stop a bit now because get them to come in so that we don't overrun completely. Just keep going. We can come in. Yeah, all go in there. We can double standard point.
Yeah, look. I think what she's saying is stop. Thank you, everybody. By the way, I think this is the most scenic bus stop in the UK. Nice view of Ben Nevis in the background. It's a bad photo taken with my mobile phone, and it was dark. Ben Nevis.
Your rich picture.
Oh, is that yours? Are you on next?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm going to the chair on the next one.
What are you on Twitter, Francis? Thank you, everybody, for that wonderful session. I quite enjoyed myself. Thank you.
That's
Thank
been
you
great.
very much for your...
Yeah, sorry we did one. We did one in your absence. We did a spontaneous round. So okay, so appoint me as well. We can't have enough praise out here, right? You don't mind the extra time? Huh? You don't mind the extra time? So, what do we want to do? Are we trying to keep to the same time?
No, because I'll just go as quickly as I can, really.
Right, okay, so we've got to 15:55. Okay then. Oh yes, yes. Save them especially a little
That's
side.
it. Thank you. Oh, where did the pens go?
Over here.
Sticky finger lot round here.
So what I need to give these out.
Right, come on, we're going to do that, say. Come on.
Please.
Yeah, go early, go off.
Or one for your friends.
I can take some on the back. I'll take some on the back.
Not really. Doesn't matter.
You mean the clicker thing to move the thing now? Yeah. That's like the technical. You know what I mean though, Damien?
Borderline.
Oh, yeah. Have you used it?
No, I don't want it. It's alright. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I used to use my finger.
Yeah, I do want mine. I don't have it. Is this going to work?
Okay.
It's not
Right, we're going to try and stick to the times.
We are.
Yeah?
Yeah, but we'll see how we go.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you can all settle down and make sure you call when it leaves. Yeah, yes. I know what it is. We've got 2 here. You can go. Okay. Right, I'm afraid we're just running a little bit late. We're going to try and keep back in time. So I know people have got to get trains and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to say nothing more, just to introduce my colleague.
You can say a little bit, actually. I need 1 minute.
I'm going to say a little bit more about my colleague, Mark Jenner.
Hi.
Who is our business learning facilitator here at UCL. What's these things? Oh, right. How many of you know this? That's not much feedback. If you have any feedback for the whole day, yes? Any feedback for the whole day?
I'm having equally the same problem. Complete hardware fail.
Oh, some of the areas are boxed there. Oh, yeah, yes, indeed. You can treat it if you're, yes, we keep an eye on the street for those things.
Yeah.
You
know what, Mira had a technical fail in her last session. I think I've picked it up as a bug, so bear with me. If this doesn't work, we'll do some old traditional ways of doing things. It's working! Woo! Don't worry.
Right,
Rescue. I am ready to roll.
Matt Jenner, folks. Matt Jenner.
Hi. That was extremely kind of you. I've got something I want to share with you, which is about the idea of the fact that there are some benefits in running MOOCs. And if I ever have any problems because I'm doing some technical stuff, you're going to see pictures of cats. So if you see pictures of cats, but I'm looking quite happy, all is well. If you see pictures of cats for a long time, just bear with me, because I want to do something, because I know it's the end of the day. We might all be a little bit more on the side of leaving rather than staying. So just while I've still got you, we're going to do some really basic warm-ups. So can people do this? Is that something you can do? Good, that's good one. And can you do it? That's all you need to do. That's the whole exercise. And you'll see why in a second. So let me just get this going. You're going to be talking to one another and you're going to be voting, by the way, just in case that wasn't clear. So let's do this. Right, you might have noticed at lunchtime, and that's why I've got cats, because this is messy, that I asked for you to go and have a look at the benefits of MOOCs. Now, UCL wanted to know, why is everyone MOOCing? What's the value in it? We're not allowed to do it ourselves. There's got to be some really good reasons, right? And our VCs, our vice principals, vice chancellors, whatever, said, come on, we've got some money, but what's the value of this? So we said, well, you know, we're not going to make you any money off this, you do realise. And I think that was maybe a bit jarring, the idea that MOOCs make you no money. Hence the purpose of this session. It's not about the money. Now, I mean incoming money. You probably have to spend something to get these things going, but you don't get a net return. This is not a business venture. Spend money to make money, accumulate to speculate, that kind of thing. It's different. But there are benefits of MOOCs that are perhaps slightly less tangible, but are certainly worth bearing in mind, and they have a value. But what are they? So we did an exercise, courtesy of the need for our Vice-Chancellor, to say, what's the point in all this? And we identified 30 odd benefits to MOOCs from digging through all of your reports, all of your literature, all the studies that have happened. This is not a very clear format. I just wanted to highlight to you that there was quite a few. What we're going to do is we're going to look at them in subsets, and we're going to look at each subset, and then we're going to vote for the ones that we think, the one that we think is the most important, the most valuable, the most meaningful to ourselves. But I want to very quickly run through what they are. I'm afraid if one of them doesn't quite make sense, when we're voting, you can talk to your neighbour, maybe they'll clear it up for you, but it's also very contextual. Modern approach to you might be something very, very, very different to someone else's modern approach. You might be lugging yourself out the 19th century, someone else might be lugging themselves out the 16th century. So we'll see how we go. But this was our first group, based around the idea of reputation. MOOCs can boost your university, yourself, your academics, your subject, whatever, the reputation of things. And then we're going to vote later. The second subset was about innovation. It was about creating new things, doing new things, discovering new things. Thinking about the idea of this interdisciplinarity on a whole new level with different partner universities or different people working together. I'm not going to, going a bit too fast. I'm not going to go into each one, just due to time. So delivery, widening participation, delivering things on whole new platforms that we've never used before. Thinking about translation problems. I've got a course, everyone's banding on this idea of 120 countries. There's going to be someone that's probably reached every single possible state, country, republic, whatever in the world, but you're not doing it in their language. So what's the true value of someone studying when English is probably a second or third language to them? But maybe we're going to start to see courses being translated in bulk, and we're starting to see these kinds of benefits that would not be obvious from the outset. The second to last group is about infrastructure, building things internally, building capability, building power, creating meaningful analytics, expanded media capacity. Do we really need kind of strategized helicopters zooming in and creating wonderful panoramics for our videos? Or can we have wobble camera on our laptop and that's good enough because we've made 100 of them compared to one? but thinking around the idea of infrastructure and the things that we can build in order to enable us. And then the last group is about student outcomes. Is this a genuine learning experience? You could argue yes or no. But thinking about reaching global audiences, building communities, mixing cohorts together, getting the alumni from one MOOC back into the next one, and making them feel kind of bringing some energy back in because they've done this before. So there's a lot to go into there. And also there's more, which is worth bearing in mind. There's a lot to go into. We haven't really got the time to explore them all. I have blogged about it, and I was really hoping that that might be the beginning of a conversation, and I really want people to contest all these points, because if we're missing some, fantastic. Today I tried to gather some from you. I got 3 more, which was providing taster courses for a bigger course, so maybe there's a new master's program, and your MOOC is a little sliver of that to gain interest, basically. Increasing learner confidence, so maybe you're transitioning into higher education or another form of education. MOOCs are a way of sampling that. Does that work for me, for myself, for my time, for my restrictions in my life? And then finally, citizenship. Bit of a vague concept, but the idea that maybe it makes someone a better person by mixing cultures or new disciplines or whatever. So I've added those in. If you want to know a lot more, I've written a really long, mind dump type blog post, and it could all be found on bit.ly/MOOC benefits. For the benefit of the audio, which I haven't been wearing because I forgot. That was bit.ly MOOC benefits. I know, but I'm thinking of the wider audience. And that's me pushing my own blog. No, it's the UCL blog. So, first round of voting. Pick up these little handsets. You can push the buttons 1 to 5. And I want to know a little bit of demographics. I'm not going to take your name. But where do you broadly sit? Are you a MOOCie maker, a MOOCie learner? Maybe you're both. Maybe you're neither. And maybe you don't know, but I've got a hand. What's up? Yeah. It's not you. It's not you. It's me. We're going to go. It's all right. We're going to go nuclear on the backup option. So, I'm using Turning Point 2008, and I think sometimes you probably shouldn't use technology that's so old that. Let's see. No response source. Should change to channel 41. Right. Let's try this again. Backup option. Nitin used to run a group about this, and he's just like, "You fool! You're using live technology at the end of a day." Let's just give up and go to the pub. Right, let's try it again. Should have pushed the wrong button. Right, so demographics won't work, but let's find out anyway. Are you a maker, a student, you both, neither, or you don't know? Please push a button, and now it's working. Wonderful. The only problem is I'm going to really struggle I'm going to produce a lot of cats in a minute, because I've got to put all this data together. Right, 37, that looks about right. Let's have a look. Hurrah, thank you, computer. Okay, fairly split. I'm glad that there's no one that doesn't know. I'm very reassured that you're somewhere in this subset. For anyone who wanted the big data conference, it was at the other end of campus, so well done for making it here. Right, am I allowed to save that, Nitin? You have to clear it, don't you? It just disappears. Okay, do you know what? Never mind, let's move on. Right, so this is research gone bad, but guess what? It's all being recorded. So we're going to go head to head with MOOC benefits. Goat on goat. The first one, you've got to think, have a little chat amongst yourselves. We do have a few minutes for each. I don't want to go too fast. Reputation-wise, your big institution, your employer, your provider, yourself, your name is getting out there in the MOOC world. Let me start this. What's the most important from this list, from this sub-list of 6, what's the most important one to you? Seriously think about it. Do you really want to target alumni more than you do think about marketing or media, or it is working good, or media coverage? Do you want to be on BBC and The Sun, as we heard earlier, or do you want to just get out there and just say University of X is in this and we're just so cool? You can only have one vote, but that's the last button you push, so keep changing your mind. But have a think about it. What really works for you?
I think you missed the main one. It's so your VC can talk to other VCs and say direct.
That's button 7. So reputation-wise, what truly matters? Going to draw to a close. We had 37, now we've got 30. Oh, we're getting there. Good work, 35. I think I'm the last one, so let's do that. Right, close that. Ooh, okay, so, see, why am I making a mistake and I'm doing yeah, I am. Oh, crap. Nitin. Right, that was awful. Okay, 6 answers. Do it again. quickly. You had your answer. We can do it super quickly. Yeah, we're getting there. Got your patience. Look at that. So much better. Forget the demographics. For those who didn't know who you were, never mind. Answer C, which is 1.3 outreach. I'm very pleased to see that. That's really encouraging. And then very, very little for B. In fact, so little, no one cares about alumni. I'm not sure if your alumni relationships office would be interested to see that, but we've got it all on tape, so we'll get you for that one. Right, let's keep going. So that was the one that's meant to work. Doesn't work, so let's skip forward. Stupid technology. Now I know how academics feel. It's very hot up here. Right. I blame the e-learning team. They're so useless. Massively overstaffed. Don't do anything helpful. Innovation. MOOCs are very different. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Innovation. MOOCs are different. MOOCs don't work. MOOCs definitely work for us, but they didn't work for everyone else. Don't lose heart. Keep faith. But innovation means that you've got to be on the cutting edge. Stuff won't always work. But of these, which are the most kind of innovative components that admittedly I've identified is most ringing true to you? Is it about student recruitment? Is it about new ways of recruiting students? Is it about new ways of creating online resources? I'm hoping this one will be slightly more interesting.
Take a screenshot when you get the answers.
What a technologist. Take photos. If you want, when you're ready to take a photo, I'll pose like this. And then we'll have the best one. Am I not mistaken? This is all being recorded, Mira? I signed a form. Yeah, it's all being captured. Last time I signed a form, I ended up in lots of trouble. This one's meant to be an advantage to me. It depends on the form.
It's a 0 hours contract.
I knew there was something wrong with that contract. Right, so we're nearly all voted. I'm going to move on in the interest of time. Let's see what we've got. Oh, God. Don't worry, it's nearly time to end the session. So this is awful software. I changed it to 6. I'm so disappointed in myself. I'm not doing it again. We're moving on. We're moving on. Stop voting. Give me a second. I am live on BBC 3 at 4 a.m. on a Sunday morning as well. It's all on there. Because I'm not using the slides that are meant to work, it's all getting very clunky. We haven't done delivery. Right, make it 6 answers. Right, here we go. Right, let's do the whole pitch again. Delivery, MOOCs, blah, blah, blah. Delivery is really important. Opening up new expansive methods of delivery. What a fantastic... This is changing education, the campus tsunami. Yeah, sure. Pioneering platforms. Yeah. But if the numbers go up, we're getting there. The fact that we're losing all the data, we're losing the data, it's probably being recorded, it's all wrong. This is scientific. Ben Goldacre would be very unhappy with this. Look at that, neck and neck between B and C. What were B and C? Yeah, widening participation. Yeah, good. I'm really glad of that. But I think there's others in there as well. Maybe we can do this again in a year's time successfully and see how we go. Yes, yeah, right. Never work with live things. Learn the rules, 6 answers. Okay, infrastructure, calm. Infrastructure is super important, right? Because most of us are using MOOC platforms because they scale. Is that seriously the only reason? Because MOOC numbers are dropping massively. So can we all ditch Coursera, FutureLearn and edX because they're now not needed? Or have they genuinely offered this frustrating back end that's now become so familiar you like it again? Was that a moan? Maybe. Infrastructure. Encouraging open education, effectively service disaggregation, for if you don't understand, basically means we couldn't do it before, so we've maybe outsourced something. So what you couldn't do before was have a platform for hundreds of thousands of people. You outsourced it. You disaggregated your capabilities. That's not such a bad thing. You might have brought in media experts. You might have brought in content editors. You might have brought in any type of thing. Talked long enough to get some responses. Well done. Ooh, okay, so there's some clear winners there. D. Pedagogical, experimentation, and encouraging open education. I think I've got the right audience for these kind of answers as well. Can't believe nobody wants to create meaningful analytics, but let's move on, not dwell on these things. Come on. Last one. Yeah, last button push counts, because this is proper science. Student outcomes, so learner experience if you want to call it something different buzzwords. But digital literacies get them used to learning in online environments or thinking about online communication skills, building international communities, accreditation, micro-credentialing. What the hell are badges? Well, let's throw them in a MOOC and work it out. What's the single best benefit from running MOOCs in the kind of learning experience? I'm not voting. I realise I'm holding it. 28. Come on. Wake up. Well, no, drop out. No, we're back in. Shh. It's drop in, not drop out. Come on, have we learnt nothing today? Answer A, digital literacies. Fair, that's cool, I like that. I don't think we know what digital literacies really means, but I think, I'm sorry, not a... because it's an evolving area. Do you know what, I just... No, this is digital capability. This is completely different. Like, me and the technology are just like that. That would have made it a lot easier. And do you know what? We've got 3 from you lot, so I really want to include them because they are just as important. So providing tasters for bigger courses, increasing learner confidence or citizenship. It's the last one. We haven't had any pictures of cats. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Sorry. Yeah. Clockwise. And I'm going to put it on Twitter. There was going to be a major finale. This was going to be the World Cup. I was going to do this whole World Cup leaderboard, drilling down to one major thing. But guess what? That's not going to happen. I've got 5 minutes. Do you want to look at pictures of cats for 4.5 minutes? I have a literacy. I'll tell my mum when I go home. Provide taster courses. Yeah. Sorry. I feel like I'm discrediting the data we're collecting. It was meant to be a very valid exercise. Let's see where it goes. Do you know what? We had this wonderful slide that showed all the people that have made courses, and it's going to come up in a second because it won't work. Yeah, the finale, brilliant. Vote your final answer. So, it doesn't work. This slide, oh, it's just momentarily, I need a cat. Right, okay, hang on. There was supposed to be a slide that shows all your different types of, I've profiled you by whether you're making or in courses or don't care or doing everything. And the profile is just reduced to a cat and another cat and another cat. You know, I had lots of options there for lots of experimentation. You don't have to do that. But I think, let's hang on the most important thing. I did have a slide of all of them, despite how completely ridiculous the technology was. Guess what? It works at home. Oh, brilliant. So this was the main list. No cats. This was the main list, and I think it's interesting because we've heard a lot about this today, and they've been coming up again and again and again. Hand up, the terminology is not quite right, but I think the idea of just starting to think about this wider picture of, yeah, we're doing it, and other people are experiencing a lot of gains out of this. Some may be completely all over this shot, only 15 might apply to you, but the others could be on the horizon, the others may never come back. I will share all this. It's already out there on the blog, which I think is somewhere in here. It's on there. It's all written about. I've tried to justify which each point means, but it's all hidden away. I would welcome critique now and or later. Thanks for your patience. Also, you should go to the geocaching event. I think it'll be cool.
That was emotional, wasn't it?
Are you kidding me?
I said if we get any questions.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, go on. Just got a couple of minutes. Can I take a couple of questions or points? Or just take them, really?
I'm not a turning point reseller, but I do believe in it.
Are you all shell-shocked now? Too many pictures of cats.
Sorry, I've broken you.
Maybe anything to...
Yeah.
Okay then, that's fine.
Thank you everybody for coming. It's been a real pleasure today. We've learned lots. We've spoken to so many different people. This was particularly invigorating.
I'm sorry, that's not a very conducive image. There we go.
I just wanted to say that the old MOOCs that one, the other one was
Again, we're exploring.
The old MOOCs is active and alive and kicking, and we have a mailing list, we have a website, we want contributions from all of you. We're looking for people to give webinars, so I'm going to plan a series of webinars over the next year or so. So if you'd like to take part in that and offer your contribution, let me know, or Mira, or anybody else from the committee. So there's Tracy and James, James there. So yes, please get in touch with us. Thank you so much for today, it was brilliant. Thank you to all our speakers. I'd like to do it again and again and again. It's great fun. Love you all.
Thank you.